on 97.3 ESPN.
All right, 2:31, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Colin Thompson, host of the Colin Thompson Show, Sirius XM NFL Radio, former Carolina Panther, local guy. Good to have his former NFL insight with us each and every week here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Winners of 9 straight, 11-2, playing for the number 1 seed. We got a whopper of a story, though, happening here, Colin Thompson. You've been in those locker rooms. You know what it's like, buddy. Is this out of sort for you, or do you see this all the time?
Well, you don't see it all the time, Mike. You don't see it going on in Detroit. You don't see it going on in Kansas City. You don't see it going on in Baltimore. Do you see it going on anywhere in the league? No.
So wait, you're telling me...
I'm saying publicly, like, this is just oozing out of the facility.
Right. Okay, publicly is one thing. You're right about publicly, but behind closed doors, do you get along with everybody? You do. You're a nice guy, but are there little factions, little problems from time to time that don't get out?
Yes, but more on bad football teams, not good football teams. That's why, like, this is wild to me. Like, are we really doing this? Like, a lot of the media and attention, like, got coordinators fired last year. Now, they didn't play great, but, like, coordinators got fired that are qualified individuals. Players have gotten fired and cut because of stuff like this. Teams around the league, yeah, there's fractions, right? There's issues, but on a winning football club that won 9 straight, that's playing really well and really physically dominating, that Carolina team, as everybody knows, and I've talked about on here with you last week, is better than people think. So, like, what's the problem? Because everyone's well paid, everyone's producing to some extent, right? And we are focused on the main thing. We are getting to the playoffs. We got to face Detroit. We got to we got to win a Super Bowl, like, or we're all gonna get fired, right? It happened to Andy Reid, right? Like, we need to win a Super Bowl here, or like they're gonna flip it over at some point, no matter how good the team is. So. Mike, this doesn't happen everywhere. No, winning teams and drama pouring out. It's so Philly. It's so Philly sports media and so Philly athlete.
All right. So obviously you talked about it Friday. Carolina is better than people give them credit for. They could be a little scrappy. The game is close. They have a chance to win it. Leggett dropped the pass. Eagles hold on after the game. What's wrong with the offense? A.J. Brown passing. Your take on what's his message?
That's just immature. I hate to say it, AJ's a great player, but we just can't be doing that, right? Like, what's happening? I don't know. Passing. Yeah, that's not Joe Burrow back there. That's Jalen Hurts. Like, our offense needs to look a little bit more like the Baltimore Ravens than the Cincinnati Bengals, where they're sitting back there and they're under, Josh Allen's in shotgun every play, just picking people apart or becoming Superman. Like, Jalen Hurts is a great NFL quarterback. Is he elite? No, he's in tier 2. So you need complementary pieces, and at times the best play is not just a fade route to A.J. Brown. The best play is setting up the pass game in the run game with Saquon Barkley, period.
Right. Why, though? Okay, I would say why. Are you seeing what Brown is seeing? Hey, I'm open, and you're not passing me the ball.
From a film perspective, Mike,
they're always open. He's always open. But
you're always open.
Is he always – look, this is the first week where I was watching the game saying I don't need an all-22 to say my man was open and you ain't throwing him the ball, and I can understand his frustration.
I think at the end of the day, like, do you think Jalen Hurts doesn't want to get on the ball? There's no – like, you want to win, right? Like, so, like, Jalen's going to – if he's open – listen, that guy doesn't even – if somebody's covering him, he's open.
Yeah.
So, like, it's like T.O., right? Like, you think McNabb didn't want to get him the ball? Pretty sure Donovan would throw it to him every play. But
it's funny because T.O. actually commented on this. He said, me and McNabb, I didn't like Donovan at all, but I give him credit. He still threw me the ball. So even if you don't like the guy, you're saying, I know where my bread is buttered. I got to throw the ball to 11. I said, hey, the guy's got pink shoes on, for God's sakes. You can't miss him. Just throw it in his direction.
You got to go through your reads as a quarterback. I wish I would have examples to pull, Mike. and I watched the game, but I wasn't able to go back to watch the film yet, which I'm upset about. But bottom line is this.
I got the film notes, the cliff notes. 11 was open all day.
Okay. Well,
you can watch it and text me later if you think I'm wrong.
No,
and I'm not
right.
a big,
I think at the end of it,
I'm not a big like, oh man, Hurts just constantly keeps missing guys. I think he misses guys from game to game here and there.
Yeah.
I think he had a rough day at the office, even though the number's 14 of 18. He's efficient. Does he not want to turn the ball over? Is he so gun shy because he just doesn't want? I mean, there's so much involved here.
They're lucky they won, Mike. Should have lost that game. Leggett should have cost that football. Jalen's fine. These are a part of these great, Detroit's had close games. Kansas City has had plethora of close games. Carolina should beat them. So this is a part of the season, but this can't get out. This can't be a thing. AJ can't go to the podium and say that. It needs to be, what's wrong with the offense? Nothing. We're moving in the right direction. Our goal is Super Bowl. We got to get better every day. Not that.
Yeah, I think it would have ended. Brown says what he says. The day is over. The next day comes. Brandon Graham on a Philadelphia radio station adds fuel to the fire. And here's where I think it's interesting, because Graham is the guy that I always say, I take what he says with a grain of salt because he's always overly positive. Nothing's ever wrong. Everything's great. Everyone gets along. It's all peachy keen. His body language and his voice said, this isn't so good. Did you take that?
I mean, I take what he says as gospel, right? Because like you're saying, Mike, he's a pretty positive guy. He's an Eagles lifer, right? Like he's that kind of guy. But like, what are we doing? Nick Sirianni must be like, oh my goodness, we finally had some calmness. I'm not in the media anymore. We've won 9 straight. We're finally calm. We just won a tough game against Carolina, and now my captain, who's out for the year, goes on WIP and comments on the situation and doesn't give coach speak. Like, the media PR people are probably getting destroyed by the front office of the Eagles right now and ownership.
Well, so let's go to that real quick, because an hour later, he changed his tune and said, oh, wait a second. So the PR guy gets to Graham and says, you better text Tim McManus and every major outlet and let them know that you misspoke here. And then he calls the radio station again this morning.
Listen, can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, Mike.
Right.
That's a mess. This is so Philly. What are we doing? Everything is excellent. They should have lost the game. Leggett dropped the ball, but you won. You move on. We burn the film, and we're good to go. Wasn't that bad of a game. Wasn't that great. But they have bigger fish to fry. They need to focus on what's coming ahead. They don't need drama going into Pittsburgh. They don't need drama going into Washington. These 2 games are massive for them. Obviously, when you finish the year in Dallas and Giants, who are almost tanking at this point in time. So the Steelers, they're the best at it. We all know what happened with AB after he left the Steelers. We all know what happened to Le'Veon Bell after he left the Steelers. Big Ben's issues all came out, right? So, like, Mike Tomlin, silence. Nick Sirianni, we need to find a way to get silence in that building. And that's, at the end of the day, everything falls on him and Howie Roseman.
Colin Thompson's with us, the Colin Thompson Show on Not For Long Media, Sirius XM NFL Radio. This is where people ask all the time, what does Nick do? This is where Nick steps in, right? This is where the head coach has to kind of get this thing together and hopefully, because Colin, this is a crossroad in the season. You've won 9 in a row. You're 11-2, but this is about the time last year when it all fell apart. This is where Nick has to step in and fix this thing. Agree?
Agree, because, listen, he's not calling plays, and we all know it. People struggle with it, right? Especially when you're losing and your head coach isn't calling plays. It's like, what are you doing, right? And you mess up maybe some clock management, or you don't kick a field goal when you should. It's like, what are you doing, right? Dan Campbell's getting some of that scrutiny. He doesn't call plays up there, and he's super aggressive, and sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. So I agree, Mike. This is a fork in the road for the Eagles. How are we going to handle this? Our best player on the team, other than Saquon Barkley, our receiver, and A.J. Brown, is beefing with the quarterback, who he's very close with off the field. So a very weird situation.
Yeah.
So Philly, Mike. Can we not do this, please?
So Philly is right. Colin Thompson. So let's look at the game. What went wrong? Why was this game closer than it should have been? Why was this game one drop pass away from potentially being a game of a disastrous loss?
I would say less on the Eagles, more on the Panthers, right? Like, Panthers have played, and I pulled it up last week, and I'll pull it up again, but the Panthers are playing teams really tough. Listen, if you have a good offensive line in this league, you're going to be good. And the Panthers have had a good offensive line. They have a second-round pick right tackle who's on a second contract, and Taylor Moton that got a ton of money. Icky on the left side, he's a first-round pick. They have a $100 million guard, right? Like, they have another guard that's like $60+ million, and they have a bunch of guys that are out. Corbett and Christensen are out. They're some of their better guys, right? So, like I went through last week, they beat the Saints by 1. They beat the Giants by 3. They lost to the Chiefs by 3. They lost to the Bucks by 3. They lost to the Eagles by 6. Like, they're rolling. They're rolling. So this is not the bad Panthers. This is more like the Bucks. The Panthers are more like the Bucks now. Like around 500, they just were a mess. So to me, Mike, it's the Panthers are a better team than people think. I don't think people want to believe that. People didn't want to believe me either when I said Sam Darnold was going to have an awesome year. Maybe Saquon Barkley's an MVP candidate. People thought I was crazy with that stuff. I did miss on a couple things. I said New Orleans would have a nice year, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries there. I'll give you that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So at the end of the day, for me, it's more about the Panthers side of the Eagles, and that's okay. That's what happens when these like teams like the Eagles that are Super Bowl bound. You're going to play a team that's not as good who's going to play you tough. It's not like the Eagles didn't want to play well, or the coaches didn't prepare as hard, or it's distraction. Like, you're a pro. But some of the stuff coming out of there, Mike, is not pro behavior. That's why I'm like turned off and saying, like, what are we doing?
Yeah, so if it just ended without Graham,
it would have been no big deal.
That's what I was getting at. So if it's just Brown,
no big deal. Like, you shouldn't be shooting across the bow at anybody. Anybody. I don't care who you are. If you're a man, you go in the locker room, you say it to his face. You do not do it on the media ever. Yeah. Think about this. It should be great win versus the Panthers. That's a good team trending in the right direction. I'll tell you what, Bryce Young, do you keep him, Mike, if you're Carolina?
He's
smiling. He's smiling. He's excited. He had some pop on his ball. He's kind of scrambling and sees the field well. You're like, okay, Bryce Young.
Well, I think it's a great, him and what happened with Edwards out in Indianapolis, Anthony Edwards out there, is the fact that these guys were handed jobs that maybe they weren't ready for. Richardson. What did I say? Anthony, I'm thinking of the Minnesota Timberwolves for some reason. I got a Timberwolves thing up in front of me here. Anthony Richardson. These guys are handed jobs. They don't have to compete for them. They're handed them too much too soon. Let them watch and let them earn the job. Let them work into the job, and they are talented enough to play. But I would say they can't play initially. They have to see it, learn it, and earn it is the big thing. They have to earn it. And so many guys don't earn it. I think both of those guys got a taste of having to earn it, and they're now playing better because of it.
Mike, do you sign Sam Darnold or you let him walk away?
That's going to be the biggest story probably of the offseason. What does Minnesota, they drafted a quarterback in the first round last year. And then other teams that need quarterbacks, do they feel that the quarterback is excelling because of who he's with and where he is? And if he comes to me, we get the old version.
If I'm Sam Darnold, like Baker has some nice toys, to kind of throw to down there in Tampa, especially when Godwin's healthy and the tight end. And like, they got some players down there. So he inherited a pretty good team.
Did you play with Baker? I played with Baker. I played with Sam Darnold. I played with Chuba Hubbard. I played with all these guys. Right, but I'm saying I know Baker was in Carolina for like a cup of coffee, but you were there at that time. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, you have this guy, he's the first pick of the draft, and it's like, get rid of him. Instead of saying, you know what? We might have something here. Coaches matter in the NFL. They really do. Like, who your coordinators are, how comfortable you can get your player, right? Like, Matt Rule would always say it. You have to play your best football under us, and it's our job to help you do that. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Not like, hey, you got to overcome and play great ball. It was like, no. A part of the coach's job, too, is help you do that. So I think for Sam Darnold, you have to go to that same system. So that's Miami. They're not going to sign you. San Fran. Does San Fran say we're going to sign Sam Darnold and let Purdy walk? So, like, that's impressive. That'd be interesting. Right? You were my backup, and now we're going to bring you back to supplant the guy you backed up. And because Purdy's a great player, but, like, can you afford with that roster to pay Brock Purdy massive money? If you get Sam Darnold at, 50 cents on the dollar, hey. All right. He's Colin Thompson, and of course, you hear him here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, Sirius XM, NFL Radio, the Colin Thompson Show. This time of the year, a lot of fun getting into the playoffs. We'll talk to Colin next week as the Eagles, Steelers. This one should be fun. We'll see if the Steelers regroup and come together, or do the cracks continue to bring this team apart. Colin, good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great week, man.